Let's bring in Kamran Bokhari for more on all of this. He's with the Center for Global Policy and the Program on Extremism at George Washington University. And the lesson here, I was just discussing with you, the Assad government, people underestimated them, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't too long ago when people were saying, I give them 6 months, I give them a year. And look where they are right now. I mean, they are resilient, but keep in mind that they've had help. Assad could not have done it with his own military forces. He needed militias, he needed paramilitary forces, he needed the assistance from the Russians, and more importantly, from the Iranians, who mobilized all the ground forces for him.
You're not surprised at these developments then?
Not at all. This was inevitable. I mean, keep in mind that while we've underestimated the Assad regime and its capabilities, we forgot that it was actually a government and there was a real military. But we overestimated the rebels. We thought that they could, topple this regime. But the rebels have lost Aleppo not because that they were inferior. It's just in the sense that they didn't have help. They had help from outside. It's just that they are not a coherent force versus the other side.
Mm-hmm. And so now the players left on the field. What do we make of who's left?
So there are 3 Syrias now. There is the Syria of the Assad regime, large parts of the western half of the country. There are the Kurds with their own self-ruling area in the northeast, largely stretching along the border with Turkey. There is ISIS land, the so-called caliphate, and then there are enclaves of rebels here and there, scattered and demoralized right now. And so that's where we are right now.
And so then what do you see as, this was a common question about Iraq, that, well, this part will be one part and then it'll just be broken into little fragmented segments. Is that how you see Syria in the days ahead as well?
Yeah, I mean, the Syria that we knew post-Sykes-Picot Treaty, the nation state of Syria, that's long gone. It's not coming back. Whatever permutation, combination happens, maybe the regime gets more areas, maybe they lose some more areas, ISIS loses, the Kurds gain, they lose, rebels come back. It's not going to be a cohesive state. I don't expect it to happen in a long time.
And the cycle of violence, though, we can't expect the fighting to end anytime soon. I mean, how do you see this thing playing out over time? And then with a new administration, a new U.S. administration, how does that factor into this?
So the new administration obviously has to make good on its pledge that they're going to destroy ISIS. So they have to do something that the previous administration, the outgoing Obama administration, hasn't done. So that will create, an escalation and fighting. But keep in mind, the ISIS is still out there. I mean, while these guys were celebrating Aleppo, the regime and its allies, they took Palmyra. And nobody was expecting that. And that's an embarrassment for the Russians and the Syrian regime. It really shows how fluid the situation is. It's not like ISIS is powerful, but ISIS has demonstrated the capability that even though it's under a lot of pressure, it can still project power in other directions.
And this whack-a-mole kind of thing, they move around and then they come back, and how do you eliminate them?
I don't even think it's a whack-a-mole thing. I think that ISIS has a division of labor. Those who are fighting in Mosul are only fighting in Mosul. So they may move a little bit of people here and there, but there is a command structure whose responsibility it is to fight in Mosul, likewise in Raqqa, in Deir ez-Zor, and the task force that was sent to retake Palmyra was also a dedicated force. So it's not like you push them here and then they come out of there. That's the terrorist organization. Here we're dealing with actually a quasi-regime.
Interesting. Kamran Bokhari, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in.
Likewise.